And now it's time to move to our last keynote speaker. He's an executive search consultant and coach to teams and executives in venture capital and private equity industry. He has a psychology degree from Tartu University. He has studied cognitive behavioral psychotherapy at Helsinki University and management in London Business School. He's a recent graduate of Academy of Executive Coaching in London and currently participating in Kaufman Fellowship Program. He recently worked as the CEO of Estonian Development Fund, the parliamentary think tank, and was the chairman and acting CEO of its investment arm, SmartCap. Previously, he has created, led and grown several businesses like Baltic HR Consultancy and Executive Search Company, Fontes, and the pioneering Baltic conference company, Baltic Management Conferences. The causes he deeply cares about are arts and culture, education, science and technology, economic empowerment. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming to Mr. Tõnis Arro.
Thank you for this kind introduction. That was really kind words. What I wanted to talk to you today, or actually the promised title, is the Startup Nation of Europe. That was the dream we dreamed together with my colleagues at the Estonian Development Fund, the place I had a chance to work for 2.5 years. Actually, today I would much more like to talk about coaching and mentoring. I try to combine the both a little bit. I very much like the previous presentation, which was a good introduction in a way, or tuning into what I'm up to saying. This, the first slide you showed about all the forbidding signs in the train station remembered me about a research which was done times ago in Estonian kindergartens. And that they investigated what the kindergarten teachers tell their children. And 90% of what they told were either saying to do something or forbidding to do something. So how does this relate to entrepreneurship and innovation? Not very well, I think. I think the most entrepreneurial period in somebody's life is starting early teens and ending with like sometime in mid-20s. And it's a kind of this kind of movement what happens. And I think education has a big part in killing entrepreneurship in people, which is inherently there. If you look at kids, they are entrepreneurial. Not all of them equally, but they want to do things. They want to risk. They want to try things out. And education tells them how to do things properly. And also, badly enough, prepares them for jobs, not prepares them to become entrepreneurs or create something new. That's how I define entrepreneurship. Entrepreneur is someone who creates something which didn't exist earlier. I hope you will be the ones who will create new enterprises which change the world. So, but Estonia, Startup Nation, you know the famous book Startup Nation, which is about Israel, where there is like, how many? About 60 times more startups than in Estonia. Probably the highest per capita rate about startups is in Israel. So if we dream about Estonia, then we thought that perhaps if we say that, well, let Israel be the world startup nation, we are happy if Estonia is the European startup nation. It's good enough. The second place. So, but how many, because why is it important? Entrepreneurs create the jobs. If we look at the big corporations, there is no innovation, no new jobs. They cut the jobs, they cut the research and development. All the new things come from entrepreneurs. So, but is the more the better? So if we look at the, do you know what is the percentage of entrepreneurs, or which is the country with the biggest percentage of entrepreneurs among the adult population? Which country is it? Who knows? Tiit, you would know probably.
I would say more generally in Africa. And
Uganda it is. more than half of the adult population is entrepreneurs, because they wouldn't survive otherwise. It's the survival entrepreneurship. So in a way, it's not the more the better. Estonia is somewhere in the middle, like if we say the percentage is more or less in the middle. So, but if we think about how people become entrepreneurs, then the first thing what makes someone entrepreneur is I can do this. So the thought. And in Estonia there is 129,000 people who have this thought sometimes. You probably know how many enterprises there are, much less. So actually from this 129,000, about less than half will go to a second stage and start doing something to become an entrepreneur. These are data from research of Global Entrepreneurship Monitor Estonian survey, which we started at the EDF 2 years ago. So less than half start doing something, and from those, even less get to the first sales. So if you start doing something, you plan, you find your partner, you start finding resources, but the real business you are in is then when the first client pays you some money for something they need. So if we go forward, then these are the figures. 89,000 of those who think of the next stage, they are called nascent entrepreneurs, those who prepare already for entrepreneurship, starting something. And then 45,000 established entrepreneurs. So those are the guys who have been in business of their own more than 3 years, 3.5 years. Probably they are quite happy if they have been in business for 3.5 years. So these are the established entrepreneurs. So only 44 of those, 44,000. And from those, if we look forward, the little figure below is from those 44,000, about 10 or 11% are the ones who either want to grow it big or either think they are doing something innovative. So I have a product or service which I have thought about, created about, or I want to employ more than 20 people in next 1 or 2 years. So low ambitions, low innovation. And to kind of combine it with today's topic, I think coaches and mentors can be helping both in between 1 and 2 to help the entrepreneurs or nascent entrepreneurs to become established entrepreneurs, and then established entrepreneurs to grow big, to think big and grow big. But if we think about, let me draw a picture. Can you hear me if I'm standing? Actually, I think I'm quite good. I have been an actor, so I can make a sound. But this doesn't work. Oh, it works. If we think of an entrepreneur, if there is someone who has a bright idea, this guy wants to be an entrepreneur. So what does this person need to become an entrepreneur, actually? So I think he needs 4 things. He needs technology. If we think of this kind of entrepreneurs, which is really conquering the world, the next Skype founder, he needs technology first. Then he needs money. Then he needs people to work with, because he can't do it alone. And then the next thing, he needs markets, because in Estonia we don't have market. That's why internationalization is the strong point of Estonian entrepreneurship, because there is no Estonian market. It has to be global from the very first day if you think of a real enterprise. And now between each, here we have barriers here. Let's see, first barrier, money. Not everybody gets financed. If I have an idea, I go to a venture capitalist or angel investor, not everyone gets money, and that's good. So that's a barrier. Then technologies. Technologies often are created, invented in the universities. So the entrepreneurial people don't have access to these. That's another barrier between his idea and technology. And then people. People are afraid to go to entrepreneurship because entrepreneurship impulses are killed in the educational system when by the time they graduate, most of them want to become executives, not entrepreneurs. High-paid executives are a dream of even business school students, I have been told. And of course, markets. Markets are not here; they are there somewhere. They are in US, not in Estonia, not in Baltics. So these are the barriers, and if we now look at if company is created somehow, let's say a great entrepreneur meets with a great scientist who has founded something technologically bright. So they create a company together. They meet a good advisor who matches them with money and gets financing. So most of them actually fail in next 2 or 3 or 5 years. Do you know how many venture-backed companies actually make money at all, bring money back to their financiers? Any guesses? 10%? Who thinks of less or more? 3% is actually closer to truth. Any returns are made by only like 4% of venture-backed companies. And then multiple returns of those who, like the venture capitalists who invested into a startup, gets money back 5 or 10 times. These are about 10% of those 4. So 1.0 would be the real gains at all. So it's quite a big chance to lose everything if you invest into a venture capital or this kind of technology company, innovative new company, which is going to conquer world, so to say. But okay, let's say if we are there on the left hand, I don't know whether you see it, smart startups, we need an idea, a team, and seed capital. Let's say that's present. So what do we need to get into a sustainable, smart business? We need more capital, we need more competence, and we need organization and talent. And we need good governance. Because governance is one thing which is normally not thought about at all with startups. You think governance is something to do with companies like Eesti Energia or something, or big corporations, that there are boards and so things. But I say that if good governance is not present in a smart startup, it's having so much more chance to fail than with it. So the good board, good advisors. More capital, that's quite essential. You need A, B, and C rounds and so. But competence. So what's so difficult with a small startup company? The difficult thing is that it's more difficult to manage than a corporation. Because I remember Jüri Mõis, one of the founders of Hansabank, was telling once, and I think he was telling the truth, that when Hansabank was bigger than like 1,000 employees, he didn't understand anything what's going on there. As a CEO, he just walked around and talked to people and asked, what do you do here? And you could do that because it was full of people knowing what they do. In startup, anyone knows nothing what they have to do. They do all it first time, and all the things they have to do is first time, and it's more complicated because you don't have anyone to delegate it to. So you need lots of competence, and I believe that's the team. I don't believe it's CEO. Any venture capitalist wouldn't even talk to you if you are saying that, well, I'm the founder, I have a great idea. They would ask, where is your team? Show me, with whom are you doing it? Because they invest into teams. So that's why I'm in team coaching. The coaching course I was graduating from is systemic team coaching. I believe this is the future. I believe, for example, if you have read about Steve Jobs, he became really great when he discovered finally that team is something important. When he thought that it's only his idea. I was at a conference in Dublin where I was seeing 5 meters from me was sitting the guy who actually fired him from Apple. He was nearly getting cried talking about this, but the point was that Steve was actually a single player. So only later in Pixlar he found it that team is something valuable. And that's the real flight up for him. So I think teams are competitive edge for today and for future organizations. So to make this long story short, we need smart startups, and we need to help them to grow into smart businesses. And what is smart business? I have made a definition for myself. This is 100, 150, 50. What does it mean? More than 100 employees, more than 100 million value, more than 50% export, and more than 50,000 value-added annual value-added, economic value-added per employee. Do you know how much it is in Estonia in average today? Productivity rate, or how many 50,000 is the smart? Estonian average is between 20 and 30. In big companies, more than 30. In small companies, actually around 20,000 euros per employee, which is nothing. That's why they go out of business and say that, well, I went out of business because I didn't get any profit. Because first you don't afford pay the taxes, then don't afford paying the salary, and then you're out of business. But what I think, actually, for Estonia, if we think in a big picture, we need smart capitalists. So whenever I'm talking to people at the conferences and they ask me, what's so special about Estonia? How did this happen, that everybody is talking about Estonian mafia and Estonian tech high? What is it? And my answer is always, I think that's the Skype. Because the Skype guys, do you know how much money they made for this sales to eBay? I don't remember the figure, but it was equal to 1% of GDP of the year. These four guys got. So what did they do with this? Of course, they put some money in pocket for securing their families for future, but most of it they put back into Estonian tech ecosystem as investors. And now we can, Sten Tamkivi has a picture on his blog of all the companies which stem from Skype. There is hundreds of them. Somehow created by the Skype founders, financed by Skype founders, created by people who worked at Skype. That's the real influence. So if I look at, but the state statistics normally says that we need high value-added workplaces. That's what counts. If we were talking to politicians about investments, we were always asked, how many jobs have you created? Well, we say, well, don't look at the jobs. Skype is 400 jobs, but it's 100 companies what he created. So do you know these companies? One is Playtech, the other is Regio, both Estonian companies, aren't they? Or are they? Are they not? Do you know? Regio is an Estonian company established in Tartu by Estonian, Estonian cartographists, and it's like global mapping company today. Playtech is actually one founder, co-founder is also from Tartu. The other is from Israel. So which is better for Estonian economy? I like both of the companies. I have worked with both of them as consultant and as coach. So which one is better? I tell you more. Regio has about 75 employees. Playtech has about 750 in Estonia, both in Tartu and Tallinn. I don't know how much Regio is valued, but Playtech is valued about 3 billion US. It's a listed company, London Stock Exchange. Regio employs 75, Playtech employs 750. Which is better for the economy? Playtech, you say. The state statistics would say the same because there is more jobs. Yeah, okay. The average salary is almost the same. People are IT people, highly paid. But what I say, if we go to back here, who owns Playtech? We don't know. And those people who do the work here, they get well paid, but the profit is created somewhere else. And this guy who owns, actually, there is one guy who owns 30% of this 1 billion. He's a guy in his 30s, one of the richest guys in Israel, great entrepreneur. But he will probably create his new and next enterprises in Israel, not in Estonia. But Teet Jaagomägi, who is the core owner of Regio, will create his next enterprise in Estonia, I bet it. It's like Sten Tamkivi got financed like $2 million US to create his new enterprise. And where is he doing it? In Tallinn. Money is from Andres and Horowitz from US, and the company is founded and created, and the team is working in Tallinn. So, just very quickly, I didn't have time to talk. I wanted to talk about Estonian bottlenecks, about the JEDI, but please go to the next week's presentation at the Riigikogu. There is the Estonian bottlenecks and what we recommend to do with it. But just very quickly, I think what we can do is we can do something about entrepreneurship on societal level. We need to try to change the attitudes, and education has a big part in here. We can do something on ecosystem level. We can make something so that those entrepreneurs, that would be more of them. And then on company level, we have to facilitate growth. We can help the companies to make their companies bigger and more innovative. And coaching and mentoring is the key thing here. So what my program would be: entrepreneurship education to kindergartens, entrepreneur to each school, mentor to each potential entrepreneur, and professional coaching to all startups. And that's what I do. I help to attract human and financial capital and grow both. And I advise startup, and the main thing, of course, I nudge my own children. I have like 5 of them. 3 of them have graduated from universities, hopefully entrepreneurs soon. 2 of them work for startups in London. But the biggest thing is the young ones, which I hope will become entrepreneurs. Here they are. They made their first income from selling lemonade on the first lemonade day of Estonia. Actually, really, I think it's fun. The first income they made, they're 30 euros each they from their own enterprise. These are the winners of future. Thank you.
So thank you very much for your most enlightening presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for your questions.
Hello. Yeah. It was really interesting to see your numbers. That was really fascinating, with how many wannabes and how many actually become entrepreneurs. And since that's not a lot, I just want to share a little example of a statistic. In 2004 in Canada, I went to this conference where there was this organization that would finance startups. You had to apply, so they were not just dreamers. They needed to have a business plan and a great idea and a realistic idea, thinking about what the other speakers said earlier today. So they would select those that had the best possibility of success. And for a long time, they were doing it just simply selecting them and giving them money. Then at a certain point of time, they started offering mentors. And the interesting thing happened that those who actually took the offer of having a mentor, that they had, the success rate doubled. So just to add on what you're saying there, we really need the success rate to double, triple, increase in every which way. So good going.
I believe that's very true. I love one example. A friend of mine who is an investor, serial entrepreneur, former executive, started a new enterprise in his 40s. He told me a story that he was sitting at a birthday party of his relative, and beside him was sitting a young relative who was a scientist. And he told him a story that, well, I have invented something like this. Do you think it might? I think there might be business potential in it. And actually, next week they got together and established a company, and he got some seed financing. And that's things happen. But typical for this young scientist wouldn't have been to sit beside this potential investor. So we have to create situation in Estonia where this would be normal, that they meet. But how? We need to bring the angels, investors, business people to universities. That's it. Create common space for them.
So, any questions?
maybe that's not the most innovative question, but if you have been working on a sound paid job, what makes you to become an entrepreneur? What's the kick?
No, that's a very good question. Do you know there is a research saying that, well, the best startups are founded with people who have had their corporate career already, so people in their mid-30s or so. So my recommendation to all young people here is that get a corporate career, learn everything you can, and then become an entrepreneur. But be careful not to be used to the income, because that's the main obstacle, because if you are in your mid-30s, you will have mortgages, you will have family and so on. You don't have the financial buffer to start their own thing. Well, today I see all people around who have been with Swedbank or with Skype, who are great entrepreneurs. They have got great training in those great organizations, and now they got out because they are bored by the Swedish owners of Swedbank or the new owners of Skype, and they get into entrepreneurship. So getting bored is one thing. The other thing is, of course, if you have your dream right now, I think good thing is to establish a company when you are a student, and then go to then it crashes or whatever, or you finance your studies or whatever, and then you go to work with some corporate, and get a great training, and then go back to entrepreneurship. If you have your dream, then you go. And for this to go back, to be able to go back, and to want to go back, it's very good to have this first enterprise during the student years. I think that's a so great pattern. I have seen it in many cases. When you establish the first company early, then you have your entrepreneurship in your blood and you want to go back.
Thank you. Is entrepreneurship more widely spread during economically good times or hard times?
Well, it's both. It's both. The entrepreneurship curve is actually, if I can show it. I will draw it and then explain. The curve is something like this. If this is the rate of entrepreneurship in society, and this is the economic development, so let's say GDP per capita. So the biggest entrepreneurship countries are the ones which are the poorest, because it's the survival entrepreneurship, and then it goes down, 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 and Estonia is somewhere here. So if our economic development goes as we hope, the entrepreneurship goes down even more than it is. It's not bad today, but it's going worse. So it's worse in Nordic countries who are economically in better up than we are. But US, Germany, and those are already here again. So again, it's kind of curve, not a linear connection.
Thank you. And what do you think? Do Estonians have some personal qualities or cultural characteristics that make it more difficult to do business internationally?
I don't know whether it's national or is it because of our recent history, but we are too often thinking that Estonia is the world. Or some people in Tartu think that Tartu is the world.
So it's a complex of small nations. Okay, thank you very much.